This is the theme of Setback in Blood Out. Second strategy, Setback. Michael reveals himself. Select frames. So Billy is talking to him because remember he had asked Billy to conduct an investigation, and Billy basically reveals before Anya can reveal that the feds are all over this particular issue with Zed and Elias. So it works kind of like a warning for Michael, right? And Billy basically says, "I know what you're trying to do," and he's the one who calls it vigilante. He's the one who uses the word vigilante in this particular instance. But he makes a very interesting statement to Michael over the phone, and it works like a warning and a moral imperative at the same time, in that this is really Michael's crossroad moment between life and death. This is truly his crossroad moment. Um, so he says, Billy says, with the badge, if you do anything with the badge, it's justice served. But if you do anything without a badge, it's murder. And Billy offers his services. I will, just let me know and I'll be Johnny on the spot. He offers help. But it is Michael who says, no, I got to keep this clean. But this is really his true crossroad moment, because he's getting a moral imperative for some parts of the film. He's been like a moral enforcer, especially with Indigo, right? And he takes over certain battles and things like that. But this is the crossroad moment. This is because if he slips too far into trying to find Zed to kill him, there's no true turning back. He could always make the case, even if he didn't receive the authority to go undercover, he could always make the case that I was trying to gain as much intel and then come back and give you a report for when we actually do go undercover, right? But he couldn't do that if he shoots and kills somebody. So now we kind of understand why the writer director is choosing for Michael not to shoot somebody. We still don't understand why the writer director doesn't allow for, say, Anthony to shoot somebody, or even Squat. Squat is so hyper. He's so hyper. He's so anxious. Why isn't he shooting somebody? Why isn't he really demonstrated as reckless? Because of the way he acts, the way he thinks, his dialogue is reckless. Why isn't it? He should probably be the biggest stumbling block in the movie, but he's not somehow. But Billy is the one that the writer director uses to issue a moral imperative that Michael needs to make a decision. And we're going to see that he does end up making a decision, because Billy ends up helping him in the end after the blood match, taking down Elias and arresting him. But this is the true crossroad moment right here. This is his true crossroad moment. It is this moment here that gives him a sense of urgency when he goes to approach Gloria to help her. So Billy is having this conversation with him over the phone, of course, and he's, putting forth this idea about justice served with a badge, and without a badge, murder. So I thought this scene was one of the scenes that I think that the writer-director was really trying to push as a narrative warning, right, for Michael to make a decision. And then Michael is very surprised that the feds are all over this issue. And this is Billy again trying to make his case. And so now that there's a sense of urgency, it is Michael who goes after Gloria to ask her about, to reveal himself to her, that he is David's brother. And it's very surprising to her. And the thing about Gloria, you know, it's something about her that you can't really trust her with knowledge. She ends up telling her brother, as she would, you know, but she doesn't strike me as a person that you could trust with responsibility, trust with knowledge. She's always running. You know, she gets into these sort of pouting modes where, um, you know, I have to assume that as a child she was a little bit of a pouter. You know, she stomp her feet, fall out on the floor, cry until someone gave in. But no one is really giving in other than David, but he's dead now, right? No one is giving in to her. And so she just continues to sort of walk like she's like in a wilderness somewhere. And, you know, it's a wilderness wandering for her. She has no real aim. She has no real focus, no direction. I don't think it has anything to do solely with David dying. I think she's just the type of person you got to take care of. She's just not going to do it on her own. There isn't any initiative in her to suggest I need to do different. I'm tired of this walking around and not getting anywhere. There isn't anything in her that suggests that. And so she just reminds me of a person who would live in perpetual setback. That she would just do life as life does her. And if she's able to gain a little money by doing something, or gain some drugs by doing something, or get a little something or whatever, okay, that's fine. But she's not going to do much more. You know, it's interesting that we don't see her in the apartment. We see her in the apartment when David gets the phone call to meet up at the spot. But we don't see her cleaning up. We don't see her cooking David any food. We don't see David really engaging her. She's just asleep in the bed. So Gloria is the type of person, there's something going on with Gloria that is sort of insecure with her. She reflects an insecure attachment. No, she doesn't really trust anything. She doesn't stick with anything too long, and she'll leave at the drop of a hat, and she'll try to emotionally manipulate you to get what she wants. And this is Michael trying to appeal to her. So first she flirts with Michael, you know, saying, aren't you one of Anthony's boys, right? And so, but Michael shuts that down and reveals who he is. And he basically says, I'm trying to get you out of here. You're having David's baby. That's why I'm here. Let me help you. You have my mother's ring, right? Meaning that there's something special about you, so much to the point that I need to help you. And my brother David is gone, so the only thing that's left over in terms of his legacy is the child that you're carrying. And I don't want you out here by yourself, unable to care for yourself, scared, you know, to raise this baby alone. You know, it's interesting that Anthony does not sort of address the fact that she has a baby. He says to her, I'm not going to help you kill yourself. But he doesn't really address the presence of her belly. Not really. You know, it's interesting that he was there at David's killing, but he doesn't say anything about it. Now, of course, he's not going to say anything about it, right? But it's interesting that he put so much emotional distance between him and his sister about that one knowledge. And that it takes Gloria talking to Michael about how you people killed the only person I ever loved. And she's talking about David, for her to show any real emotion, to reveal her truth. When she's talking to her brother, she's only trying to get something out of him. So she understands that's the only kind of relationship she can ever have with him. She can't speak her mind. She can't reveal her emotions. She can't reveal how hurt she is and how much pain she is over David's death. It takes Michael coming along, his presence, coming along and saying, that he wants to help her. Because remember, Anthony is not saying that he wants to help her. He's saying, I'm not going to help you kill yourself. That's a big, big difference. Michael is coming along and saying, I want to help you. So something in what he's saying has pricked her heart to now, for her to now just not explode, but just spill her guts, so to speak, right? That y'all killed the only person I ever loved. And so he continues to appeal to her in the same way that she likes to appeal to her brother. He's trying to stay the course to try to convince her in the same way that she tries to stay the course to convince her brother. She's still kind of not having it, but he's leaving some kind of mark on her. He's leaving something that basically suggests that she might come around. And so he's the one who acknowledges the belly, of course. Michael, because of the urgency of Billy's statement, has created a new mission, and that he got to get Gloria to a safe space, right? And Gloria's attitude, though, in not wanting to be rescued and not wanting to be saved is a setback for her, because she's not really doing any better alone. So why not accept the help? When we get to the very end of the movie, we see that she was reluctant because maybe she doesn't feel like she deserved to be saved or helped, right? So we get to see that emotion from her. But right now, she's putting up the guard. She's no different than Anya holding the stick to Michael's chest. Anya had a physical stick, but Gloria has an emotional stick. I don't necessarily think she's trying to manipulate Michael here. It's just that when someone says, I want to help you, she resists. So that has become, in some ways, her standard, her code. In the same way that the drug dealers have a code, she has her own code to resist and not believe, because she even says to him, I don't believe you. And that's when she walks off. So she walks off. Michael's mission, his goal here is not fulfilled because she's not walking with him. She's not walking towards him. And she's not walking away from her current environment. She would rather turn. Now, she doesn't give him the finger, but this is really no different than giving him the finger, that I'm not going to listen to you either. Now, she ends up having to listen to him because she has no other choice. But this is her way of rejecting help. So then Anthony comes to Michael's place. This is the first time we see Anthony come to his place. And it's interesting how he looks at Michael, right? Michael is suspicious because, remember, it is Anthony who calls David to come to the spot. So now he is physically visiting Michael to tell him to come to see Elias, like come to the spot. So Michael is holding a gun, of course, right? Because, that's what you do when you feel threatened. But he essentially goes with him. I think Anthony's look here is something to take note of. We don't know for certain if Gloria has contacted her brother, and we don't know the time frame between Michael approaching Gloria and now Anthony standing at his door. But this look here is not a look that Anthony has had towards Michael. And Anthony has had a blank look. He has had an excited look when he was fighting the guy on the ground. And he's had a sure look just, in his dealings with Elias and Squad and Michael together. But this look is one that bothers me, and I'm the viewing. I reflect one member of the viewing audience, and this look bothers me, and I wouldn't have wanted to go with him either. It just bothers me. I can't really explain it, but it sends shivers down my spine, like what is about to actually happen. And the writer director really conveys suspicion very well with this look, trying to figure out who Michael is, right? And he still doesn't think of Michael as a cop, because even when he calls him later about Gloria, it's still from a standpoint of being an assassin whose brother was David, who got killed. But this look is something to think about, and this actor Edward Quinn really does convey suspicion very well, almost borderline contempt, as if Michael has done him an injustice in a sense, right? Remember what Billy says, that with the badge, justice served, but without a badge, it's murder. And it's almost like Anthony here is feeling that Michael is not telling the full truth, that there is something that he's hiding. And it's hard for him to really stay within his suspicion because of Michael's surroundings, because Michael knows how to handle himself. Michael knows how to talk the game, talk the way necessary to maintain his cover. But that image, that look, and Anthony has shown us many looks, but that one is the one that kind of scares me. So they're having a conversation. Anya is in the middle, right? Smoking, holding a gun. Now, this is the Anya who looks like she doesn't know how to handle a gun. Now, this would be the real, if she wasn't an undercover federal agent, I would believe that she was a person who didn't know how to handle a gun. She's just holding it, just to hold it, right? For whatever reason. But I would be much more convinced that she wasn't undercover here. So Elias is having a conversation with Michael, and he's having a territorial thinking type conversation. He was kind of philosophical when he was talking about the world's perception of us, right? But now he's talking territorial, colonizing, borderline businessman thinking, right? So he makes this statement: we don't divide and conquer, we conquer and divide, right? And I never heard that before. Someone might have said it, but I never heard it before. That to divide and conquer takes time. It takes process. It takes you going in, gathering intel, trying to figure out who's what, right? Who represents what, in the same way that Anya is doing. Anya is basically going in and dividing and conquer. She's been undercover for a very long time. So that means she didn't come in conquering and dividing, right? She is in there to divide and conquer. And her dividing is basically not necessarily dividing people between each other, but trying to figure out as much evidence, gather as much evidence, and input that information into a database to later, divide and conquer. So it takes her processing to do this. But what Elias is saying, we're going to skip all of that processing. We don't have time for that. That's good. That process takes patience. It takes a lot of heart. It takes a lot of not getting let down. We just need to go in, guns a-blazing, conquer, and then divide. And that's what you see when Michael is conducting that exercise at that safe house, right? And you also see it too at the beginning of the movie when he goes into the meth house, right? So that's what Elias is saying. and he goes into distributions of he goes into outlining the distribution of territories. So Arturo represents the South Americas, and then he says Zed and he represent the North Americas. And then it is Michael who asks the question, who's covering Europe? And Elias here says, I like your thinking. What he wants to do is, he and Zed want to do is unite North and South America, and then that will put Zed at the top, and he would Elias would have direct control over North America. And then Michael basically says, okay, sounds like a bloodbath. Okay, so this is the engaging in the conversation about territorial thinking, outlining who's going to do what. And he didn't say who was going to take over Europe, but Michael basically asked the question, who's going to take over Europe? So I don't remember getting an answer for that. And then Elias basically says, I'm going to bring in my best general to fight at the bloodbath. And Arturo is going to bring in Hector Gonzalez, right? And then Elias, I'm going to bring in mine, which is you. And then Michael says, how can I help? So it's interesting how at the sound of Zed's name, I have to assume that Michael is asking this question, how can I help? So he can get close to Zed, right? Because he knows that it is Zed who is responsible for killing David, because when Anthony pours one for the homies, he reveals it as much, right? As well as Squat. But how can I help? He's changing his strategy. And Michael, in the strangest way, and I have to assume that the writer-director is using Michael like a solution to problems, right? In the beginning, he's trying to pay his dues. He's skipping the jumping in process. He's blessed in. He fights to prove himself, prove his loyalty. He saves Anthony, right, from gunfire. And then Elias makes him a general. And it's interesting that we don't see any coordination between Elias and Zed talking about Michael becoming a general. We see Arturo talking on the phone about who is this American, investigate, right? But there's no coordination between Zed and Elias concerning Michael, right? Maybe for film time, they had for film budget, they had to cut that out. But it's very interesting how Elias is making a solo decision concerning Michael fighting Hector Gonzalez and becoming a general and being the answer and solutions to their problems. So the blood match that Elias is talking about is winner takes all. And what he is suggesting is that if we lose, we work for Arturo the rest of our days. But if we win, we will have riches beyond our wildest imagination. So remember when Elias was talking about we need the paper, right? And the paper is money, of course, and it sort of buys them to a better life. So Elias and Zed are really low-level drug dealers. If they're saying that if we win, we will have riches beyond our wildest imagination, why don't they already have that? They should already have that, right? They should already look like Arturo. So they're really after Arturo's territory in terms of living a leisure life, not always just because he runs the South America. It's not so much that they want the territory, they want the leisure. They want the money to be able to to leisurely do whatever it is they want to do, even if it is to continue selling drugs or running drugs. They don't want to be the foot soldiers anymore. That's really what that's about. They don't want to be the indigo crew that is who are hanging on the corner. They don't want to be the assassin foot soldiers anymore. They want respect, and they feel like Arturo has that kind of respect, and so you will have riches beyond your imagination. It's interesting that when Michael looks at Anya, she turns her head. I don't know why she turns her head. I don't know if this is a manipulation tactic or if it's a trick or something like that, but it's definitely strange that she would turn her head. Now, we know what she's done. We know that she's taken DNA from him, so maybe there's some sort of suggestion that she really knows who he is here, and that she doesn't want to look him in the eye because she got the information really behind his back. I think she honestly manipulated him into going to bed with her, and then just so she can get that that DNA from him. So this is maybe like a reflex, because she knows that she did what she did in an immoral way, lack of integrity way. But she's already reflecting this because she's undercover anyway. So it's here where Anthony is calling Michael because Gloria has revealed to Anthony who Michael is and that he is David's brother. This is the first time that we see Gloria sitting in the car with her brother. So interesting, this dynamic. This is the first time that we see her sitting in the car. So there's so much concern for Gloria now, to the point that he's willing to let her sit in the car. And no one really has sat in that car other than Michael and Squat. So for her to, and then she gets the shotgun seat, she gets the passenger seat. And that tells you, that gives her some kind of respect, right? And so it's interesting that she's now sitting in the car. It's kind of interesting how Michael is becoming this go-to person, to solve the problems that Zed and Elias have. I remember something that Zed said to Michael, that and this is basically regarding the blood match that's going to come up, that you're fast, more powerful, more intelligent, you will win. And to me, that has some survival of the fittest undertones. But this is still basically a setback for Michael that he's going to realize, because he accepts a challenge, but he doesn't know his opponent. And you're going to see this reflected towards the end when he's doing a little bit of push-ups, and it seems like he's a little bit concerned about it. But he's the go-to for everybody, and he's the go-to as a person that no one really knows. He's a solution to a problem, but they don't even understand him as a solution. And that all of their senses are dulled about this particular person being a solution to the problem, right? But again, that has some survival of the fittest undertone. So Anthony calling Michael to come and meet him because Gloria has told him about David is interesting, because why don't we see Anthony solving Gloria's problem by helping her to get out of her situation and get to get to better ground in life? Why is he always parked at this location here where it seems like Gloria lives? Why isn't he concerned about trying to get her to a better place? Because you have to wonder, how much money do they really have? How much resources do they really have? If he can't get his sister to a better house or a better apartment, then he doesn't have as much as it seems like the narrative is putting forth, right? So Anthony calls Michael about Gloria. Mike takes a gun with him. And it seems like Anthony is a bit of a disgruntled employee with a narcissistic employer. So Gloria is still wearing the ring. She's bothered. And she's just a ball of emotions. You know, she lost the love of her life, according to her. And so the only person that she's ever loved, rather. And she's wearing the ring. So in her heart, she's still married to David. So this is where we see Anthony, to me, as someone who is almost defeated. He just seems a little defeated. You know, I think that if David was not killed earlier, he was going to be the Anthony that we see sitting on this car, hood of the car, just not having the same enthusiasm that he had before towards entering the gang culture and the drug dealing business. And he just seems like a very disgruntled employee because um, he's saying that Elias and Zed have lost their way and that no one is bigger than the set, right? In the same way that Billy says to Michael, no one is bigger than the set. In the same way that Anya says to Michael, no one is bigger than the set, right? And so Anthony takes it very personal if one person is trying to be bigger than everybody. I thought we was in this all together as drug dealers, and if anything, we don't see ourselves truly as drug dealers. We see ourselves as, you know, community providers, you know, community service people, whatever. We just don't have a legitimate organization. But when you get one who is narcissistic in their understanding about things, and they want to basically take over everything, it reminds you of Nino Brown, The World Is Mine, right? I forget the name, New Jack City. The World Is Mine. But everybody at that council table, they were all in it together as a group, as a family, but it's Nino Brown who's acting like the world is mine. And so Anthony just doesn't have the spirit for it. He just doesn't have the appetite. He doesn't have the heart for it. And maybe he was feeling this way prior to David's killing, but I think David's killing really did him in, because David is the one he used to ride around in the car with, I'm quite sure, doing drug deals and talking, having conversation. And it's clear that David dated his sister, right? Because she's pregnant, and they were engaged. But he just doesn't have it. He has lost his steam. He just doesn't have the same enthusiasm that he had before. And so it has a lot to do with more than just the organization itself. And so we see here Gloria saying, I want to get out. But again, the irony is she has a brother who's supposed to have resources, and why can't she go to him and say, I want to get out? Why didn't she feel comfortable enough? That's interesting. Why didn't she feel comfortable enough to talk to her brother and say, I want to get out? And what this suggests to me in some ways is that she's using her brother for the wrong thing. So she's using him to get drugs or to get money or to get access to something else or whatever, but she's not using him as the right tool to help her get out. That he is also an answer to her problems, but she won't use him as an answer. So that creates a further setback for her. It shouldn't take an outsider to come along and say, oh, let me help you get out, when you have resources around you. So there's a distrust with her brother that started way before, I believe, he got into drug dealing. So you have to wonder about their family dynamic. It must have been toxic, right? their mother, Gloria, probably looks like her mother in the same way that Anthony probably looks like his father. And so I just think to myself, how is it that um, it took Michael coming in, uh, um, disguising himself as a criminal in order to bring help to Gloria? And you also have to wonder, why didn't Michael just go straight for Gloria without having to become a criminal to do so? I understand why, because he's really trying to find out who murdered his brother. That's not hard to understand. But even in this scene right here, even in this scene, in this, dialogue between the three, they still don't suspect him as a cop. Now, I'm quite sure David says something to Gloria about him being a cop, or he might not have. But somehow they still don't really suspect him as a cop. Not from what I gathered. So Michael is in his room. There's a knock at the door. That knock at the door is Anya. So he's always alert. You never see, it's funny. The only time we saw him sleep was when he was with Anya, right? But this time he's much more wide awake, and I think it has a lot to do with what Billy said, and that the movie is moving into a sense of urgency. So again, he protects his turf, his territory, this little room, holding a gun to against the door just in case there's an issue. And so it is here where Anya is revealing to him that she's undercover, and that she knows who he is, as Deputy Michael Savion. And he's actually shocked that she is a cop and undercover, and that the feds are on this. Well, Billy had already warned him that the feds were on this, right? But to see her as one of the people who represents the feds is very shocking to him. She says to him that, "I know you are a cop," and he keeps denying it. But then she makes a point of saying, "But I saw how you cleared the Indigo House, and that had you not been there, it would have been, guns a blazing. It would have been just chaos, right?" And then she provides her skill set, that she was trained at Quantico, and that her role as an undercover agent is to build a DNA database of gang members, and that they need them all in one place, and that Zed is really the target. Because remember, we don't see Zed anymore. We saw Zed at the beginning of the movie, but we don't see him anymore until the end. So Zed has been incognito for the longest. We don't know what Zed is doing. We don't know what Zed cares about. All we know is that he's at the beginning and he's at the end. He works like bookends. And so Michael provides a reason behind why he's undercover, and reveals to her that he's undercover solo, and that it has a lot to do with Zed killing his brother. And she says to him that he can't do this, vigilante. That's the second time that word is mentioned. First it was with Billy. Now Anya is mentioning, vigilante. We don't see him as a vigilante in the beginning. We see him as a concerned brother trying to figure out who killed his brother, right? But towards the end is other people who have this sort of moral imperative, who comes out and labels it, vigilante. So he reveals that Zed killed his brother, but it's interesting that the writer-director doesn't prompt further, more questioning, right? Like, who was your brother? Why doesn't Anya say, who was your brother? Because then if she said, who was your brother, he would reveal the name David, and then she would basically have a face about it. It would show up as as a concerned look, scared look, right? So I thought that was interesting that she didn't ask, because remember, she was there at the killing, and she saw Zed kill David, but there's no discussion of it. That okay, he killed my brother, and you don't ask who the brother is, right? And so their relationship is now hitting a setback, in a sense that, maybe like a second setback, because how are you going to be in a relationship with this person in any kind of capacity, knowing that she was there at David's murder, and she's not going to say anything, and he doesn't seem to ask anything about it beyond this basic, dialogue, and it's a good dialogue, rather, about no vigilante justice, that this is bigger than you, and he can't mess this up. We need them all in one place, and Zed is the target. So I just kind of thought that was interesting that she didn't ask which brother or who brother, what was his name, because remember, she's building a database. So why wouldn't she be concerned about who the brother is? All right, so hopefully you were able to gain some insight from this lecture. Please like, subscribe, and like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can visit my website, reginawhitefavors.com. You can always send me an email. Please purchase the book when it comes out. It's going to come out approximately August 2021. I needed to make some changes to it and do some final editing. So the book title is Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction. Thank you for listening to this audio. Have a great day.